We're going to start the second part of our talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. So this time in this video, we're going to talk about Pranayama, Dharana, and Prajyahara. So I'll explain what each one is. Pranayama is controlling the incoming prana, the incoming life force into the body. According to Kriya Yoga and all of yoga, your breath doesn't just bring in oxygen, it brings in prana, and prana is an invisible life force that literally sustains your body. If we examine the body of a dead person, it's full of oxygen. So obviously it's not just oxygen that keeps the body alive. According to yoga, there's a life-sustaining substance, invisible, subatomic, that gives your body life, and that's called prana. Pranayama is the science of managing how much prana comes into your body. Also, according to Vedic medicine, like Ayurveda and Vedic doctors, before your physical organs get sick, there's an imbalance of prana around that physical organ. So, somebody reports liver disease, then an Ayurvedic doctor would be looking for a pranic imbalance around the liver before the actual symptoms show up. In pranayama, you are mastering the amount of incoming life force by mastering your breathing. I'll talk about some mechanics of breathing. Number one, if you want to be calm, breathing has to happen in the abdomen instead of the chest, because the tiny sacs called the alveoli, they are at the lower part of the lungs. So when you breathe, your stomach should go out. When the stomach goes out, the diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped muscle, flattens out and allows the lungs to hang down. When the lungs hang down, at the bottom of the lungs is where the majority of oxygen to carbon dioxide exchange happens. When you breathe up here, you're choking yourself because there's very little oxygen to carbon dioxide exchange up here. Most people who get tensed up bring the breathing up here. Look at one of your friends and see if their shoulders are rising and falling when they're breathing. That's what the majority of tense people do. Whereas if you look at somebody's abdomen, the abdomen should be rising and falling during inhalation and exhalation. That's a good sign. Abdominal breathing automatically calms down the mind because you're getting rid of toxins. More toxins, bringing in more oxygen and more prana. The qualities of healthy breathing. Breath should be long, like imagine from the sole of your feet to the crown chakra and back. Long breath. Next one, deep breathing. All the abdomen fills up, the ribs start moving out, and then the whole chest fills up. You take in 7 times more oxygen when you breathe that way. So abdomen fills up, the ribs start to move out, and the chest fills up. Nobody's going to get a large belly from abdominal breathing. In the reverse, you use these muscles more, so your abdominal muscles become more in shape. So back to qualities of breathing. Long breathing, deep breathing. Another one is smooth breathing. People who are nervous, they breathe in jagged steps. Actually, I can always guess what your inner state is going to be by watching the state of your breathing. If you're breathing very quickly, you're angry. If you are breathing in jerky motions, you're nervous and anxious. If you're up here, you're scared. If you're breathing slow, deep, rhythmic, there's the other quality of breathing. Rhythmic breathing. Watch a baby sleeping. You watch the baby's abdomen is going in and out, and also there's perfect rhythm in the baby's breathing. So far we have deep breathing, long breathing, smooth breathing with no pauses or jerks, and then slow breathing. Imagine there's miles and miles, kilometers and kilometers between 2 breaths. In the science of Kriya Yoga meditation, we say the calmer your nervous system is, the slower you breathe. Why? Because when your meditation is very deep, your metabolism slows down. So deep meditation equals slow metabolism. Slow metabolism equals less breathing because you need less oxygen with a slow metabolism. So somebody who breathes slowly, not somebody who chokes themselves, somebody who fills the belly and gets rid of it in slow motion is not having anxiety. Also rhythm. Rhythm is just part of the natural rhythm of the body. So that's a good sign. Deep. The other one is slow breathing, and finally quiet breathing. Again, if you watch a baby at rest, the breathing is quiet if there's no blockage in the nasal passageways. So quiet breathing, very, very good sign. When you're sleeping soundly, and if you're not snoring, then your breathing is very quiet. It's silky. I can watch any of you during meditation and just know by your breathing how deeply you've gone. Because when you're deep, deep meditation, these muscles relax, so you see an inner smile. The other thing is the breathing becomes so slow, so quiet. One actually has to come up to you to see if you're alive because you're so calm. And there are specific types of breaths in pranayama that will help you. One of them is called the ujjayi breath. Ujjayi makes a sound of ah with a closed mouth. You have a muscle here called the glottis. When you tighten that, the breath sounds like with a closed mouth. The ujjayi breath oxygenates the blood. It gets rid of the acidity of the blood. When the blood becomes alkaline, when alkaline blood enters your brain, you calm down over here, mentally. So most doctors will tell you that non-acidic breath or non-acidic blood is very good for you. Non-acidic blood, meaning alkaline. It's good for your health, calms you down. Okay, so that's the ujjayi breath. If you're having a very moody day, then you can practice the alternate nostril breathing. The yogic theory is each nostril feeds the opposite hemisphere of the brain. So if I put my thumb here and breathe through the left nostril, I'm actually feeding prana to the right hemisphere of my brain, which is the creative part. If you're having a moody day, here's what the alternate nostril breathing looks like. You put your thumb in the right nostril, breathe in, you just fed the right hemisphere. And then hold. And then release the right thumb, release the breath from the right nostril, and then taking a breath from the right nostril, you just fed the left hemisphere, hold, release the left nostril, exhale, and then inhale, hold, exhale. So watch the smooth sequence here. Like that. It really stabilizes moods. Now, if you're the type of meditator who gets sleepy during meditation, Kapalabhati is a fiery type of breath. Like that. About 3 minutes of those really heats up your body, gets the blood going, it gets the vibrations going in the body. Like that. I'm purposely puffing up my cheeks so I don't let out the exhalation too quickly because that's a shock to the lungs. This is what joggers do. So they pressurize the lungs. You don't suddenly empty the lungs. So this is the fire breath. And your stomach is snapping. Look at my hands on my abdomen. It's like this. The stomach pops up, snaps back in. It snaps in by itself. You don't have to control that. So some of you get sleepy and groggy during meditation. Do 3 minutes of these, and there'll be a rush of heat and energy into your body. Also, to breathe like an alligator, you can lay down on the floor, and when you breathe in, your stomach should push against the floor. That means you're breathing into the abdomen. So if you're laying on your abdomen and you take a breath in, your stomach should be pushing against the floor. Focusing on pranayama during the day, focusing on the motion of breath going in and out of your nostrils will lend you a lot of contentment. If you want to be a princely or a princely man or a gracious lady, grace comes from following the breath. This I'm not kidding about. If you become mindful of the breath and then you start to go through your kitchen and your hallway, you realize that your footsteps are making less noise. If you're putting a saucer on the cabinet, you don't bang the saucer against the cabinet. If you're calling a friend, you don't shout from 4 yards away. All you've got to do is be mindful of breath movement. And after a couple of months, people will notice that you're becoming very graceful. Because attention to the breath lowers the volume of your voice. Your movements become more accurate. If you're putting something down on the cabinet, you don't bang. If you're stepping in the hallway, your heels are not banging against the floor. This is what I mean. Okay, let's go on to another limb of yoga. Let's call this one Prajyahara. Prajyahara means the moment that your mind is about to go to the wrong place, you get your mind back and put it in the right place. It's a bit different from mind control. You know, like in the old days, they used to collect a bunch of priests and they would say, we're going to take you up to a mountaintop where the closest woman is 50 miles away. And that way, you're going to get rid of your lust. And it didn't work because the person would sit on the mountaintop and think of women. In other words, you have internal desires that has nothing to do with a woman being present right next to you. So that didn't work. Prajyahara says, if you're lustful, at the moment that your mind is about to go to lust, at that moment, bring it to something internal. So here's a challenge for you. If you're addicted to chocolate or cigarettes, try this Prajyahara exercise. Put the chocolate on your tongue, and as you're about to taste it or smell it, internally start to recite Om. You find something really interesting happens. As the mind withdraws from the object of desire, if the mind withdraws, the 5 senses will withdraw. So we can try this together at dinner time. Put something really tempting in front of you, and as you're about to smell and taste it, take the mind to the mantra Om. You find that as the mind retreats, all of a sudden, the 5 senses retreat with the mind. The mind is the commander-in-chief of your nose, your tongue, your sense of touch, etc. In Prajyahara, you don't ignore that there are attractive members of the opposite sex. So you go to New York City, and Prajyahara doesn't say, don't look at the good-looking man. Yoga never says no. Yoga says, if you love your spouse and you see somebody really attractive, you can take a glance, but if your mind starts to go to some troublesome places, bring the mind back to something internal. For example, the face of a saint. Or if you love your grandmother, think of your grandmother. or if you love the mantra Om. It doesn't matter. Pratyahara means as the mind is starting to go to the wrong place, bring it into something internal, but not by force. So Prajyahara says attractive women exist, cigarettes exist, whiskey exists. So you don't treat yourself as a recluse priest 50 kilometers away from civilization. That doesn't do any good, because your mind is going to start wanting. So yoga is too smart. It says, acknowledge that there are attractions out there, take a glance. If the mind really starts to go way off, then take the mind and put it on something attractive inside. For example, you could do a visualization of the great relationship you have with your children. You can visualize being very, very healthy. If you used to drink alcohol, you just visualize being very healthy and jogging and having a healthy family. Now, the issue with Prajyahara is several-fold. First of all, your 5 senses are designed to want. So when your nose smells barbecued chicken, the nose is designed to smell and want. So one problem is the 5 senses are designed to want. The second issue is you have a subconscious mind that has been conditioned for some internal wants. So I know people who quit cigarettes 5 years ago, and the subconscious mind still remembers a good puff. The subconscious remembers. So it's not just your 5 senses. Your subconscious mind may have been conditioned to marijuana, cigarette smoking, pornography, magazines. Although you left all of that 5 years ago, the conditioning might be there. So that's another problem for Prajyahara to tackle. And then, as far as desires go, the mind, the intellectual mind, gets really angry when you ask it to leave an attractive thought. It doesn't have to be attractive. Some of you lock your apartment door and then you become obsessed in the street whether you shut off your gas range, your kitchen range or not. It's an obsession. Did I turn it off or not? Did I blow out my candle before I left the apartment? It's an obsession of the mind. If you try to force the mind to leave that thought, is my tea kettle still boiling in the apartment while I'm in the street? The mind doesn't like to leave that thought. So in Prajyahara, yoga is being very smart. They say, look, you've got subconscious conditioning from the time you used to smoke 5 years ago. You used to look at porn magazines when you were 12 and a half, and some of those images are there. And then your mind is latched on to the tea kettle because you're not sure if you turned off the flame. How do we get this back to Om? And in Prajyahara, there's no force. It simply says, the moment your mind starts to go towards obsession, just bring it back to Om. And then it goes back to obsession, and then bring it back to Om. And visualize pleasant things. Visualize happy children. Visualize jogging. Visualize healthy body. That's Prajyahara. And the main reason Prajyahara works is that the commander-in-chief of your 5 senses is your mind. I would really like you to try this in the kitchen with all the lovely food at dinner time, because your tongue is going to see some pie and you're going to start to salivate. And I want you to test something. As the mind and the tongue go towards the pie, put your entire attention on Om and go inward. I promise you your pie. You can have your pie. But before that, practice Prajyahara. And see how powerful it is when you take the mind away from the pie and put it on Om or any other internal object of focus. Finally, we go to another limb of yoga called Dharana. Dharana is basically concentration. And yoga says, look, if you want God, if you want oneness, if you want to live in the present moment, you've got to have some skill in concentration. Patanjali, one of the founders of Raja Yoga, says, if you can keep your mind on one thing or nothing for 12 seconds, you're already an advanced meditator. So watch my hand. This means inhale. This means exhale. Okay? See if you can stay with my hand, inhale and exhale without any other thought for 12 seconds. Ready? Stay with the fingertips. Now, stay with the breath. You see, 12 seconds. If you can stay with one topic for 12 seconds, Patanjali, one of the big founders of yoga, says you are already an expert meditator. Believe it or not, people cannot stay with one notion for 12 seconds. This is an illness, and it causes lack of self-confidence, because if you don't have concentration, you don't have anything. You cannot drive, you cannot cook well, you cannot pay attention to your baby, you can't do anything. This idea of multitasking is an absolute disaster. You've got your phone here, you're ironing with one hand, and you're feeding your baby with the other hand. Absolute disaster. The yogic approach is do one thing at a time with full concentration. People in the modern corporate life think that they're going to lose out. But I want you to try this. Go to your corporation tomorrow, stay with the breath, notice at the bridge of the nostrils that breath is coming in, breath is going out. Stay with that for 1 hour. Promise yourself 1 hour of breath consciousness. And then do one task at a time with mindfulness of the breath. You'll find that by 5 p.m. you will have handled all your tasks, you finish your chores, you don't make mistakes, and your nervous system doesn't get thrown off balance. Multitasking it goes against human nature. Try full concentration, one task at a time.